Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, and welcome back to our Planet Coaster 2 challenge series here in Planet Coaster 2. And you join us over here at our wonderful boomerang coaster Sakura. And you may wonder, actually, why are we starting here? Why are we not anywhere else? That is because I have been doing a little bit of work to sort of get everything ready so we can start our next area of the park. And I really wanted a reveal of what this all looks like from here. And this is really the only place that you can't exactly see it. Although you might be able to see some stuff back in the background up there. But if we come along here, you may see something up there. And if we just continue coming on this way, and then we will just come down here, across the splash zone. This is our next area of the park. And yes, it is quite big, it is quite imposing. But if I very quickly leave this and pop all the way back over to Roman Racer, we are finally doing this area of the park. That is right, we are finally hunkering down and getting our Wild West area of the park done. So I've started with this sort of layout. For starters, you can see I've got 2 rides in here already. We're not actually going to touch those in this episode. That is going to be stuff for moving on a little bit further. But for now, we are just going to work on this little area here and this little area here, and we will see what we can do. So without further ado, let's roll that time lapse. Yes, hello, and welcome to the time lapse for this episode. I am your time lapse host, and we do have a wonderful episode for you lined up today because, well, we have finally moved on to our final area of this park, which means we are finally in the home straight, which is all exciting stuff. Now you may be wondering, ooh, what are you doing today? Well, we've got a lot lined up for today because, kind of, with where I want this series to go, we are approaching the end of the challenge park. So what I wanted to do was sort of get in, do the majority of this area, and then we can save the next 2 episodes, which will be our final 2 episodes for now in this park, for the river rapids in this area, and the final big roller coaster for this park. So, hopefully that should all be exciting. But for now, we are starting off with this ride here. This is a Coriolis, and I had a slightly silly idea with it. So we had this ride in Planet Coaster 1 called the Aeronauts, and it was sort of like this thing where you ride in these hot air balloons. We don't have it in Planet Coaster 2, but I really wanted to do something similar because I thought, well, what other flat ride really fits a Wild West area? So, this is quite genius, this. I used beach balls, scaled all the way up as the top of the hot air balloon, and I think it works quite well. I did try looking at these clay balls, but no, these beach balls were the thing that ultimately ended up working the best for me for this. So you can see me here coming in and placing these all down. Now, kind of the main thing that I really wanted to do with this was give them all different colours, because, you know, what is the point if they're all the same colour? So that's why we're placing them all in individually, which is quite fun. So yeah, that was the inspiration sort of behind this ride, and that's sort of where it goes. Obviously, we are at the back of the park now, so in my mind, this is where, you know, the most recent expansion of the park would have happened, and where the biggest budget expansion would have happened. Hence why we've got all this terraforming to build the river down the middle. The mountains at the back, I don't think in the real world will actually be as much terraforming as they are. I think it'd be probably massive buildings, much like the facade and front of Valhalla at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. But there we go. So you can see me here just placing in these hot air balloon decals all over the front of this, and I really like this. I think it looks quite cool, and just getting these in, it's slightly silly, but it works for what it is. So yeah, this Wild West area has been a long time coming. I really enjoyed playing with the Wild West theme in Planet Coaster 1, and I'm happy to be back playing with it now. So yeah, you'll see that we get quite a bit done in this episode, and this area is actually split up into 2 different areas. I think this is our biggest area of the park. So what I've tried to do is split it up into 2 smaller areas, technically 3, but 2 main areas that kind of just fits into this vibe of the Wild West. So you've got this, which I think is on the cusp of sort of one area. It's between 2 areas, really, if you want to say that there's 3 areas. So one of these areas is the area over by the river rapids, which we'll get into in a bit. There's the bit in the middle, which we'll get onto in a bit, and there's this bit over here where the roller coaster is, and that's really sort of the main draw of this area is the roller coaster. But I really wanted to get some other bits and pieces in. Now I'm using these ropes here as the ropes that really just make up the main portion of the of the ropes on the hot air balloons, and I think it looks quite good. Sort of then going, okay, the basket at the bottom is made out of this, the actual ride car, and I think it looks quite good, so I can't complain about that. I did struggle about what to put on the top though, because I went, okay, we can put this wind pump in, because, you know, it'll spin around and it'll do all this, and that'll look quite good. And then I set it into test, and you'll see it here. Kind of, I was like, that's fine. And then it tilts, and I'm like, oh, well, I can't have that there, because if that tilts, then that's going to look really weird. So, unfortunately, we ended up losing that. But I did put some banners in. And then I found, if I give it a sec, these awnings, which I spread out like that. Actually, by spreading these out, I think that looks quite good, kind of in sort of that light blue colour. It's slightly silly, but I think it works for sort of what I'm going for, in just having this ride look kind of a little bit more complete than having this open top. And I didn't really know what to stick there for a centerpiece, if I was going to have a centerpiece, so hence why it looks a little silly, but there we go. Now we're getting in this queue line. It's going to be a very simple queue line. It's just a round and back. You can see me here kind of playing around with getting it all the way around. And then instead I just go, nah, you know what, that's not worth the trouble, let's get it round this way. So we bring it down to there, and then we do a bit of a switchback there, just to get it in there. Love a good old cattle pen. And then we come in here, and I really wanted to get some sort of little shack, because, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but every ride tells a story, and I wanted this to sort of be something to do with aeronauts and this sort of idea of people flying in these hot air balloons and stuff. So I've got this sort of little building on the end here that I thought just really capped it off quite nicely, which is all fun. And you can see me here just coming in, figuring out what I want to do with the roof, because I have no idea at this point. But I bring that in, and then I switch the roof over from the tin roof to the tile roof, because I think that looks a lot better. Now, in terms of Wild West areas of theme parks that I've seen in real life, my main sort of example is Frontierland at Disneyland Paris. That is my golden standard when it comes to Wild West areas. I mean, you know, you've got the river that I can't remember what it's called, but the river that runs through it all, and then kind of the big Thunder Mesa, big Thunder Mountain runs through. That whole thing looks amazing. We've got to jump in the footage there. So, you can see over there that we've actually finished theming up the ride. I said this was going to be a bit of a quick-fire episode. We're doing a bit of this, bit of that, and that is very much true. So, over in the back there, you can see that we've added the theming around, we've added the rocks, we've added a couple of bits, and now we can move on to this town, which is really where all of our facilities for this area are going to be, and I wanted it to sort of seem a little bit, you know, fun in the way that we are building all of these facilities in. So they're sort of baked into their own buildings. I did try having a look at making them all different colours, but actually I thought, you know what, let's make them all the same colour, and then we can make this high street really just look quite nice in the way that it's presented. So yeah, we've got all of this here, and then kind of we can do what we did over in the Victorian town by sort of varying the heights to make this one big building look like multiple different smaller buildings, which is fun. And you can really see here me figuring out what to do with the roofs, because, you know, there are so many roofs in this game, and I have no idea what to do with the Wild West roofs, but I think what I came up with here looks quite good in terms of kind of these smaller buildings down here. Like you can see me get these roofs in there, and then put the peak on it there. That's all good. And then coming over this side, we can kind of get this other bit in. Now I wanted this thing where you see on a lot of kind of these stereotypical Wild West buildings of that they have this veranda porch out the front of the what you would call it. I have forgotten the name of it completely. Out the front of the roof, basically. There's a bit that you can walk on, almost like a balcony, which is really what I wanted to go for with this, which is why there's that kind of plateau there, where I've not got roof, so that is going to end up being our balcony for this building, which is quite fun. Now getting these bits and pieces in here, you can see me sort of sticking these bits down, having a bit of a play, seeing what I can do. Now, no, the thing about this is nobody's going to see it unless you're on the roller coaster or you're on the river rapids. But that's besides the point. That's a problem for future episodes. So nobody will actually see the toilet sign that we've got on top, which is unfortunate, but there we go. That is the problem with hiding facilities in this game. But you can see me here with these balcony railings, and I really like the look of these balcony railings. I think they look quite nice, and then getting them in sort of alongside everything else within this sort of section of section of railing is quite fun. I like the way that looks, and actually bringing it there, that just caps it off quite nicely, and we can start getting some doors and windows on. So I put a small door with a few small windows down here. I think that looks quite nice. You may think the front's looking quite bare. That will all change in time. Now we can get these smaller windows down onto these buildings, and you can see me here just sticking these bits and pieces down and figuring out what to do with all of these different buildings. Now we're sticking some awnings over the shops themselves. I thought that would be a wonderful way of kind of breaking up bits and pieces of what this looks like. But yeah, right, where was I before? Oh yes, Disneyland Paris. So I was talking about their Frontierland. I think it's one of the best in what it does. You know, as I say, it's got the river, it's got the Big Thunder Mesa in the middle, which Big Thunder Mountain goes through, and it's got Phantom Manor, which I just love the silhouette that adds to the land. You know, you stand on one end, you look over the river, and you can just see it there in the background on the hill, and I think it looks really fun. Now here we are, kind of getting rid of this bare look of the top of the hotel building by adding a sign that says hotel. And I think that just brings everything all together. I think that is the joy of just adding these signs to the buildings. I think kind of it is adding this signage that really makes it pop and really makes it kind of apparent what we're aiming for here with the whole thing, which is fun. So yeah, we're opening these shops now, and there is a reason that I've gone for a Chief Beef and a So Delightful. That is because I really wanted to kind of make the appearance of this root beer stand and this sort of place where you can get ribeye steak. I know you can't, but in theory. That's the whole joy of this. Now, I tried looking at bits and pieces we can stick on the front of the buildings, and I couldn't exactly find much, but I did find a couple of chimneys and a weather vane or two, so I thought that would look quite good on the front of here. But we still want to go sort of realistic in our budget, so we don't want too much detail. We want all of the all of the basics, as it were, getting these bits in here. And this being the jailhouse, I remembered that we had windows with bars on them, so that's down the side, and that looks quite wonderful. Now we're going to start another building up here, because our park needs another restaurant. People are absolutely clamouring to have food, so what do? Well, what else? We build a saloon, and there is a thing I always associate with kind of saloons when it comes to the Wild West and things, and that is them being on the corner, and they will always have their entrance on this corner. So what I wanted to do was have this building where the entrance was indeed on a corner. And that provided a couple of interesting bits and pieces, because of course we don't have any diagonal grid in this, so we had to make it up as we went along, really. But that's all fun stuff, you can't really complain too much about it. So you can see me here trying with that. It doesn't work. So what do we do instead? Well, we've got the panel pieces. And there is the second jump in the footage, and you can see it done there with the rest of the town. The process we went behind that was sort of getting it in using the smaller panel pieces and just making it all look quite nice. Now, here we are on the final part. So we've had our first part, which is the bit with the roller coaster and the balloons. Then we've had this second part, which is the town, and here we are on the third section of the park. And this is something a little bit different, but we are harking back to Planet Coaster 1 again, because there was a ride in Planet Coaster 1 called Gears for Fears, and it was a wonderful ride. It was sort of like this mecha roller type thing that we've got now, but it was themed to a train, and I thought, what's more Western than a train, so we kind of have to put it in. But then we've also, in this area, got the ever so wonderful river rapids. So, what do you do when you're kind of confronted with those two conflicting ideals? Well, this is going to end up being sort of a lumber mill. It does conflict just a bit here and there, but I think what it does looks quite good. And you see me here, I've put the flatbed in under the thing, but then I realised, it doesn't actually work there. So then I had this genius idea of scaling it all the way down and attaching it to the bottom of the carriage. And I really think this is one of the funnest ride theming ideas that I had, in terms of just sticking that flatbed truck underneath the ride gondola, because I think it just looks really, in a word, stupid, but stupid in a good way, and I think it really adds to that sort of feel that I wanted to go for. The rest of the kind of gondola, I did what I could. It looks a little bit wacky, but there we go. Now we're coming in here and sticking these iron wheels in either side of the carriage again, just to make it look a little bit more train-esque, and you can see it going around there, and I really like the way that looks. Now we can come in here and stick some gears up the side, sort of bring in this industrial look, which is quite fun. And I did toy around with, okay, how do we make this look good? And then realised, actually, no, that's going to go through there, so let's just mirror the other side, because, the joy of mirroring. And again, you can see the train carriage there just working so incredibly well at what it does. Now I realise I could have put an actual train in this area. I did have a smaller idea for a junior coaster, but we are limited on space, because I really just didn't want to make this a massive, massive area, which I think is a challenge in and of itself. So kind of coming in and doing that, I think, provides, again, the challenge of just making this good on a budget. And I think what we end up with at the end of this episode works for what we've got so far, so that's all fun. We've stuck a couple of chimneys in the on the ride vehicle itself. That's all fun, and now we can stick some girders along the top just to add, again, to this sort of feel of it being a little bit more industrial. And it does not hold a candle to the ride vehicle or the theming on Gears for Fear, but there we go. Like, nothing really can compare to that. I did toy with the idea of replacing these with these iron girders, and then I went, you know what, actually no, that doesn't look good. So instead we've stuck a boiler down there, again, just to add to this industrial vibe and this sort of train feel. And I'm sorry that I'm sort of a bit here and there with the theming on this. I'm finding the pieces and then going, ooh, I know what I could do with that, and take it somewhere completely different. But that's sort of the process with this. Now we've got these pipes that sort of cover up the platforms, the edge of the platforms on the top bits and pieces. Again, I did toy around with the idea of sticking these iron bits and pieces here, but instead we've gone for a piston on top of the ride gondola. It just adds another moving part, and I think it looks, again, slightly wacky, but, you know, you can't exactly complain if it looks alright. And I'm certainly not going to complain because I think it looks alright. Now we're adding this colour scheme in, and I've gone for this very sort of dark brown and dark green colour scheme, and I think it is just slightly kind of, it gives that Emerald Express vibe. There was a Lego train set back in the day, for context, called the Emerald Express. I had the little creator version, and I found it really charming. I had it and really enjoyed it. And sort of I've used that similar colour scheme here just to make it kind of have that train feel. Now I've added some saw blades up there because I went, actually this is meant to be a sawmill, so kind of we'll add those bits there. And finally, we are able to connect this area up to the last and kind of get to a point where we can start looking at the queue, which is fun. Now, this is called Off the Rails, though, by the way, which is fun. The other one's called Balloonists, I believe. So, where do we start now? Well, I went, what else do we do? We build a train shed. We completed a challenge there by building flat rides. So, yeah, I wanted to build a train shed because I thought that would just add another sort of big building to this area that sort of caps off this end of the whole area, and then we can do bits and pieces here and there by actually building into a lumber mill mine type area for the queue of the not log flume, river rapids when we get to it, but that is a problem for the next episode. Now, I did toy around with what to stick here and there in terms of these train carriages, because I really didn't want to sort of obscure anything, but I did want to stick these all in. You know, in the real world, I think these would be donations from, say, a local train company that's sort of gone out of business or whatever. And then here we are, just sticking stuff on the end of the queue, which is fun. So what I wanted to do with this queue was sort of give it a bit of a covered area, but a covered area that you could see back through to the ride. And it looks a bit wacky because we are going to have to delete some bits and pieces, because unfortunately our gondola does go through it, which isn't fun. But while I'm doing that, I believe we're about to go back to real time, so I will see you in real time in a moment. Enjoy! Okay, welcome back to real time. Now, we've got a number of things done this episode, and I can't really complain about any of them. So obviously we started down here with our lovely little Coriolis, I believe it is. Coriolis, the Balloonists, which I really like the way that this looks, and I really like the way that it all works, and I like the little bits of theming around it. And of course, speaking of theming, we've got bits and pieces like these cactuses, like these rocks, all the way through here, and that looks really nice. Then over here we've got our little town, which is wonderful. So we've got things like the jailhouse, the hotel, and obviously down here we've got our ribeye and root beer, which is fun. Coming around the other side, we've got the livery, and we've got a couple of buildings back here. We've got this wonderful diorama here Oop, and we've got our saloon here, which is a lovely little restaurant, which seems to be bringing in all sorts of people, which is fun. And then we came over here and we started this sort of back area to the Wild West area, this sort of lumber mill type area, and we started off with this, which is our train themed mecha roller called Off the Rails, which I really like the way that looks, especially with the sort of train car details underneath it. And yeah, that is all fun. So if you did enjoy this episode, then please do give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even a subscribe if I'm lucky enough, and I will see you in the next episode. Ta-ta, roll that outro.